Well, to unpack the number for us, the latest GDP number, I'm joined by Nicky Weimer. She's the chief economist at Nedbank. Thank you very much for joining us, Nicky. So lots of major sectors registered declines in the second quarter. What's your reading of the latest GDP data, and how much did load shedding play a role?
I think load shedding and the floods. So this is a story of those two shocks, and that's essentially that where we saw the heavy contractions. Those were industries that were either very energy intensive industries like mining and manufacturing, or they were industries where there is a high concentration of activity in KwaZulu-Natal, and they were affected by the floods. So those are the two key shocks that impacted our performance over the second quarter. Listen, put all together, it wasn't wildly off from what the market sort of consensus or average forecast was. The market was looking for a decline of minus 0.8%. We actually thought it would be worse. We were looking at minus 1.4%. So, and where we went wrong is that services actually proved a lot more resilient than we thought it would. And specifically your sort of transport, storage, and communications industries, and then also finance, real estate, and business services. We saw quite big and robust growth there over the quarter. So those two provided an offset that we didn't anticipate.
So, Nicky, when it comes to the expenditure side of the economy, what were your key observations around how the economy fared, especially when it comes to consumer spending?
Okay, so again, the consumer spending was positive. It increased by 0.6% over the quarter. And, again, we're clearly seeing the impact of consumers cutting back on sort of discretionary spending items because of the surge in food prices, fuel prices. But they are going out to eat more. The revival in those industries that have been hardest hit by COVID rules, like your restaurants, your hotels, accommodation, coffee shops, and so forth, that continues, and that provided a big boost. So services, again, food services did relatively well. Entertainment, spending on entertainment, all of that provided a bit of a counter to the drag that we saw in other parts where consumers were more cautious and certainly cut back. So overall, it was actually, again, a lot more resilient than we would have thought.
Yeah. It's strange that the GDP print for Q2 declined by 0.7%, but when we look at the unemployment figures for Q2, the unemployment number declined. Was there a correlation that you saw there or not?
So looking at it from a purely number perspective, it makes sense. You've got an increase in consumer spending and you've got an increase in employment over the quarter. So that makes perfect sense. So clearly, the fact that we're seeing what I think we have at the moment is our production side of our economy is under extreme pressure. So we've seen mining, manufacturing, agriculture, and then even construction, a long slump there. That is taking strain. It's been hit by one shock after the other, some of it old shocks like load shedding, others new shocks like the impact of climate change and the floods in KwaZulu-Natal. And it also has this overall drag. Remember, these are our big exporters. It also has this overall drag coming from the world economy. In the second quarter, we saw slower growth in the global economy. The US entered technical recession. China went into strict lockdown. So that's also weighing on the production side of the economy. But the consumption side of the economy and consumers are actually proving to be fairly resilient. We've seen the acceleration in inflation. It's been driven by a toxic combination, which is food and fuel prices. And yet they have the benefit and the impact of that and the drain of that is to some extent being offset by the fact that your sort of broader travel, tourism, hotels, accommodation, food services, restaurants, the likes, they are recovering. So they're still ascending from, the lockdown rules. So where the rest of the economy was in 2021 is where those industries are now in 2022. And of course, these are labor-intensive industries. And as they recover, what you do see is that they are creating jobs. And that is providing some protection against the price pressure and against the hike in interest rates.
Nicky, more to ask, but not enough time. Thank you very much for your time and insights there. Nicky Weimer, she's the chief economist at Nedbank.